Hi there everyone, Lars here with another Writer's Rant, brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends, and oh boy, this has been a rant that's been brewing now for months. The more and more that I see people admitting to this when they talk about what has allowed them to create their stories, or why they made certain creative choices, or why they decided to go back and remake da-da-da. And it all comes back to this. They wanted revenge! And that is stupid! First of all, I don't know how many stories we have out there that show that pursuing revenge only just leads to more death and destruction, and very, very rarely ever leads to anything good for the person who is actually seeking revenge. I can think of maybe only 2 stories off the top of my head, and by far the best is Dipper's proclamation that getting revenge against Pacifica was absolutely the best. And those are the exception to the rule, and one of them was made as a joke. Now then, this is not to say that writing revenge stories isn't good. Absolutely not. There are some phenomenal revenge stories out there. There's some that I really enjoy. I really like the whole revenge angle within Vinland Saga. Oh, that is just so good. But there are way too many creators these days who think that they are owed a chance to destroy someone else or something else because they wish revenge, and they will use their story to have that chance. And this in and of itself is born from something that many people have said over the years, that, hey, don't you dare poke fun at that kid. Not only might that kid may one day become your boss, but that kid could become a writer and absolutely immortalize you in the worst way possible. And you know what? Almost everyone does this. I mean, Tolkien hated spiders, so he made spiders some of his most irredeemable villains throughout the entire history of Middle-earth. And I will also admit that I poked fun at 2 of my teachers that I had in grade school and high school, with one character who pops up in my first major novel, Knights of Hallicrues. However, I didn't actually use the book to get revenge on these 2 teachers. I didn't call them out by name and say this is what they were doing, put myself into the story, and then have myself rewrite history by destroying their lives for something they did to me in real life. Absolutely not. And Tolkien didn't write the hobbits as exterminators going around spraying poison on all of the spiders. Yes, Bilbo does kill a lot of spiders. Yes, Sam does skewer Shelob. And that all makes excellent sense within the confines of the story, and we root for the hobbits to do so. But Tolkien is himself not being like, yes, as he smokes on his pipe, yes, I felt it was good to destroy all of the spiders in Middle-earth because spiders suck, because I was bitten by one once while I was living in Africa. That's why spiders are the devil's own creation. No, that didn't actually happen. Yes, he was bitten by spiders, but no, he didn't put it that way into his books. And as such, he was able to take something that he feared and hated and turned it actually into a very engaging antagonistic force, and in one case with Shelob, a horrifying monster for the heroes to overcome. This is different than writing a story which is all about getting revenge for something that happened to you and living out that fantasy as you just tear into everyone who you feel screwed you over. No, that is horrible writing. Let's take 2 examples right here as points of comparison. We'll take 1984 to the newest Velma show. Oh yes, oh what a disaster that is. 1984 was inspired by the fact that the communist parties around the world had basically abandoned the idealism of Marx and Engels and had created totalitarianistic states that were just going to lead to a horrible future. And so the funny thing is this, is that Orwell, who was a communist, decided to use those experiences to create a tale of warning people of what the future could hold if they allowed such governments and such ideals to persist. And it is amazing. Say, in a way, it is definitely him jabbing back at people like Stalin, who he would never have a chance of touching, someone who he absolutely hated, but he made a very meaningful story out of this by showing, hey, this is what different governments, this is what different communist and fascist governments are doing, and this is the kind of world that they can create unless we stand up to them now, because it is so easy for us to backslide into this kind of a horrible situation. And 1984 stands out as just an incredible timeless novel because of just how real it feels and how much we see of Orwell's predictions coming true in the world around us. Not to get political or anything, but like that is one of the reasons why the book works out so well. Yes, it was written from a place of anger and frustration, even hatred, but it was not Orwell writing himself in as the Gary Stu character shooting Stalin and Hitler and being like, I have saved the world and now we will all live in a beautiful utopia where we will all get along. No, he didn't write any of that. 1984 ends horribly, and it's so poignant and beautiful in that. Now, let's turn on over to Velma right here, where Mindy Kaling decided that it was a great idea to write not a story about Velma Dinkley or about anyone within the Mystery Gang, but instead to recreate her time in high school, apparently, and make it an alternate reality of herself getting back at the patriarchy, getting back at all of those beautiful girls who shamed her, getting back at all of those boys who didn't lust after her, and exploring her sexuality far sooner than she apparently did in actual life, and then just reveling in the freedoms that she believes all of that gives her. And she did it in a mean-spirited way. You could easily write a story about a girl who comes out and realizes that being true to herself empowers her to be happier and to do things that she didn't think were possible. That is actually a really cool story, and you can wrap it up with some supernatural mystery elements. That would be really neat. But no, what we get here is we actually get a revenge story. We get a revenge story where Mindy Kaling wants to get back at everyone who she believes screwed her over. Screw you, everyone. Screw you, Dad. Screw you, Mom. Screw you, beautiful person next door. Screw you, ex-boyfriend. Screw you, ex-girlfriend. I hate all of you, and I'm going to drag you all through the mud. And not only that, I'm going to drag all you nerds through the mud because you didn't think I was, what, bangable enough? This is stupid. Why is this in the show? This show is nothing but pure vitriol and hatred born out of revenge. And you would be surprised how many people come from this angle, from this way of thinking when it comes to writing their stories. And maybe this might be a little bit of a spicy topic, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. The new heads, and now ex-heads of Marvel, said that one of the reasons why they decided to pursue all of these different Marvel stories, all of these more bottom-of-the-barrel comic book stories, is actually not because they thought that there was any real value within these characters, but because they saw an opportunity to give minorities a chance to have revenge. Like, this is actually real. I am not kidding when I say this, that they thought it would be a great way of rewriting history so that way they could get back at all of these people who had been mean to others in the past. And speaking as a historian, that's not good. That is actually revisionist history. And if you want to know where revisionist history gets you, I would like to point you to the Lost Cause movement after the Civil War. Yeah, that leads to some really bad places. Revisionist history is not a good thing. It only leads to more heartache and problems that you now pass on to later generations. Rather, instead, if you see problems within history, you need to address those problems and figure out how in the present you can bring all parties together and overcome your differences. That is working through major issues, and that's what brings peace and progress to the world. Not this revisionist revenge, but not only that, it actually makes for a really bad story. Again, look at Orwell's 1984. He didn't go back and rewrite the history of fascism and communism to make something nice and happy. No, he took the very real things that were happening in the past and in the present to show this is where we could go by writing a fictional cautionary tale. And don't even get me started on all of these really weird conservative Christian revenge children's stories. Oh, Oh, that's so creepy right there. Why are all these kids all big and smiling as they again rewrite history and get revenge on the lefties? This is not a one side of the political aisle kind of thing. No, in fact, actually throw the politics out of it. This is a stupid person kind of a thing. We have an entire subsection of the population who feels wronged in some kind of way and has learned that they can use stories to get revenge in fiction because they are too stupid, too weak, or too scared to actually stand up to the real problems in their own life and work them out. Yes, stories are cathartic and healing to write. Believe you me, I will be honest when I say this. There are certain things I've written into my own books, certain themes, certain characters, who I put in part because I wanted to be able to explore something that I personally felt was very meaningful or very healing to myself. However, I will also be very honest. In none of my books have I used my own fictional worlds or characters as an opportunity to get back at someone who has wronged me. Because that is stupid, that is weak, that is pathetic. And what does that say about me? That says that I haven't moved on from something that shouldn't affect me anymore. I should be able to go through the healing process in a healthy way that allows me to move on. Seeking to get revenge on a person or on a thing or on an event within my own story shows that I am not willing to go through that tedious process, that great healing process, and get over something that is very important to me. Instead, it says, I wish to continuously stunt myself. That is just dumb. And this is something that needs to stop. Yes, you can write revenge stories, and you can even have those revenge elements be something that is inspired by your own lived experience. But if you take the time to write an entire story, to basically rewrite a moment of history for yourself so that way you can have the satisfaction of revenge, you are not helping anything. You're not even helping yourself. Yes, you will feel great. You'll be like Dipper, be like, ha! Revenge is underrated. That felt awesome. And guess what? Pacifica still came back. The problems were not gotten rid of. The only way that Dipper overcame any sort of issues with Pacifica in the end was by actually working with her and overcoming problems together with her. That is how you solve these kinds of issues. So what can I say at the end of this rant? It's this. Stop using stories to get revenge on people, things, places, events that have wronged you. You can use stories to go through that healing process. And I think that anyone who belittles anyone for that is just being a jerk. Because absolutely, I for myself have found great fulfillment, great healing, and great opportunities in my own writing experiences, but that's because I've tried to approach it from a healthy point of view. And just to give one more example is this, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Look up the history behind that book series. It is sad, it is heartbreaking, but it's also beautiful because it is the author trying to empower a nameless victim who he had the chance to, who he could have helped, but didn't. And that choice haunted him. Now then, someone could argue, well, this is definitely him going back into the past and trying to rewrite that. Absolutely not. Because when you look at that story, the story that inspired the girl with the dragon tattoo, and then you look at the actual story of the girl with the dragon tattoo, you'll realize that they are two very different things, but that they still come to the exact same problem, and it was a point of healing and a point of empowerment, not of revenge. Yes, there's plenty of revenge within the story, and we can see realistically what that does to the characters. But it is still very impactful because it is being realistic and not buying into this revenge fantasy stuff. That is just dumb, and it will always, always, always lead to a bad, poorly written story that will be poorly received by people and will only further the problems and add on even more problems to what the author has already gone through. Authors, do not put yourself through that. Instead, do what you gotta do to take care of yourself, write great stories, use your life and your lived experiences as inspiration for writing great stories. But please do not pursue vengeance through your story because you're not going to get it. Whew, okay, so there was my rant right there. Lots of yelling, screaming, vitriol, and everything else that goes along with a fantastic writer's rant. If you would like to step away from the rantiness and actually get into some good storytelling, some great writing advice, please check out our other videos here on our channel. You can also head on over to our podcast, Camille's Harem, found on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, the works. We have writing exercises for all of you to try out over at our Pinterest page, and of course, we would love for you to join our ever-growing community of novice authors. You can do that by subscribing to our channel and commenting down below. We would love to hear from you. Also, if you've enjoyed this rant, if you've enjoyed any of our content and you would like to support us, please check out the books that we've published. Links for those books are in the description below. I know there's going to be something in there that you are going to love. You're going to find some great stuff that we've written. And otherwise, thank you so much for joining us on this adventure that we call writing. Sometimes it is an angry adventure. Sometimes you just gotta scream from the car. But it is an adventure worth going on. So thank you for joining us, and until the next video, y'all, tschüss.